First of all, I'm looking into kind of a type of imagination that I think existed in the cultural centers and cămin cultural and Casa de Cultură, which was about how can everybody participate in the production of culture, whatever we may call culture, not in just the consumption of culture. So this is for me the most important kind of idea around them. And I'm currently doing a PhD at Goldsmith University of London about these cultural centers in Europe.
Yeah, and I'm from England, and I'm very much interested in community centres and cultural centres of different kinds. I've been coming to Romania for many years now, over 20 years actually, and I've worked on many projects in different locations in Romania, and I'm really particularly interested in the value of culture and the role in which centres play in people's lives, especially in non-commercial settings. So it's not about purchasing something, it's about going somewhere to be able to create and participate. That's really my interest in cultural centres in general.
What did you discover so far in your research about cultural centres?
Well, there are great differences between villages and cities, regions, and also, of course, countries, because prior to this project, we also spent a lot of time in Budapest, looking into cultural centres there. And there's one thing I think that connects the centres historically, and that is, as Irina's already said, it's about the production of culture by people in general. But the actual way in which that's interpreted or operational is obviously very different in different locations, because they have a kind of locality to them.
But you have amazing things, for example, just to localize a little bit, just to talk about Romania. So you have examples of, for example, Roma shows, that were held in small or in cămin cultural, in villages, but they were not allowed, for example, to be part of shows in big cities, So there is this kind of differentiation also of who's able to participate, who's allowed to participate where. Depending on the size, of the center, there were more activities or less activities, but you could have cine clubs, you could have photo labs, radio amateur, theaters, cinema caravans, tennis, table tennis.
In what time period are you talking about?
Well, basically they started, so I looked at the archive, they started much earlier than we think. The one that we filmed actually starting in 1938. So a lot of people kind of associate the cultural centers and Casa de Cultură and Cămin Cultural with, let's say, 1955 to 1989, so the so-called socialist period. But they started actually earlier. But of course, they flourished a lot in the 60s and 70s, and even in the 80s, they were still building cămin cultural. So, for example, if you go to the archive, there are something like 4,000 dossiers of cămin cultural that started in 1938, 1939.
I mean, it's quite incredible, actually. I think that some of the centres, obviously the larger ones in particular, they have huge theatre spaces, they have radiophonic workshop facilities, they have, as Irina was saying, workshop facilities of all kinds. And I think that most cities or towns, villages, really benefit from something like that. And through talking to people who have worked there and also participated in lots of different events, we really start to feel the importance of such centres in people's lives. They really help to connect a community because they become part of the community, and they become known as places where people can meet, they can participate, they can create, they can enjoy their lives in different kinds of ways. So they really are amazing places in so many different ways, and I think a lot of people have got views about cultural centres. But actually, if we think even more about them, actually, we start to learn a lot more about the deep significance that a lot of the centres hold for people in general. It's really quite incredible, actually, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that also, when you look into the archives, it's an amazing opportunity to find out about the life of the village, because the archives, so basically these dossiers were very much influenced, by the basically these dossiers contain something like a monography of the village, so it's basically cosmology. So the village is situated here, the culture of health, the culture of work, and the spiritual culture, so it's about also what was the diseases in the village, or so you really find a lot of things. It's not a simplistic, it's really not a simplistic institution. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the initial phase is very much connected to Gusti, but later it's not so much connected to Gusti, and so that's why I don't want to mention him so much. But we have to think about them as really incredible places, with a lot of history.
Yeah, I think most people probably see them as places for discos and weddings, and those are obviously important for many people and very popular. But actually, there is a lot more going on now. And certainly there was a lot more going on before in the centres of a very broad cultural nature. So that's, for me, what's very, very interesting. And I think any country in the world, whether it be Romania or England, where I'm from, would really benefit from these amazing centres.
What did you discover in Ceylon? I think that's where you did your short film for...
Well, I think the Slon, so basically the film, it's kind of looking at the cămin cultural in a broader sense, and also in a way, the way these early dossiers, files were made. So looking in the context, the context of the village in which the cămin cultural is situated.
Yeah, well, I mean, we spent some of the summer in Ceylon, meeting people and talking to people, asking people if they wanted to participate in the project and negotiating how they did that. And out of that came the short film, which we very much enjoyed working together on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not. You will see that it's not what you would say maybe a classical documentary. It's an experimental film, 16mm film on 16mm. So it has. We were looking at certain threads, and certain. So we've been kind of. Influenced by certain things like rhythm analysis, for example, or the idea of the image as an echo. So we've been thinking about how can we create an image as an echo in order to think about how can this cămin cultural can perpetuate, because the echo is something that comes to you but doesn't stop there. It kind of goes in the future. And so the film has for the film, the sound component is very, very important for us, and so it's structured a lot. It's a very structural film, and it's structured a lot around the sound.